Movie theaters are modern-day pulpits. Reel World Theology exists to shed a light on the narratives that are shaping our culture, and to remind viewers that entertainment is not mindless.
Right. For those watching at home, you've got a little one-up on everybody else, because you can tell Mikey's not here today. This was not the plan, but that's I think the whole thing, right? Is the new plan is to be more flexible.
Yeah, whoever's available records a podcast, whether Mikey's available or not. So
yes,
and secretly, like, this is a full-on redeeming culture takeover of Real World Theology. So
that was what we were planning the whole time. I mean, we kind of got him to even message for us a little bit. He's like, well, there's other things in culture. I'm like, that sounds familiar. I don't know where I've heard it before. But we are sticking to movies mostly. We're sticking to Encanto today, for the most part. I did want to just kind of rewind, got through some of that, haziness, getting back into the swing of things. And I thought there was a bunch of TV shows that you might consider if you missed them in 2020. So I'd like to just list off a few of those before we get into the movie discussion. And they're no in particular order. Just Warrior Nun. I can give a pretty good recommendation for that one. It's a lot of biblical symbolism and things like that. So some people they're for or against that. So depending on your taste, that can be intriguing, that can be off-putting. But secret organizations, passing down of superpowers type things, The Chosen One, that kind of a storyline if you're into that. And if you're worried because it ends on a cliffhanger, they have recorded and edited season 2. It's just they haven't announced the release date yet. So future-proof that one a little bit. Alice in Borderlands. This one is... I don't know if this has a genre title, but I think it's going to need one soon. It is usually Asian-based series where there are adults that play childhood games in life or death scenarios.
Okay, so it was Squid Game before Squid Game.
Exactly, yeah. Okay. So that's why I was mentioning this one. If you love Squid Game for those reasons, then this would be one to go back to. Now in this one, he kind of there's a type of anime story called isekai, where someone is transported to another world and then the story happens a lot of times. This one is kind of like that. Like, he wakes up and it's like an empty city apocalypse kind of a thing, but he still goes through a lot of these, they're not all kids games, but it's based on kids games. Lots of violence, lots of life and death type stuff. But if that's your cup of tea, I'd give it a thumbs up on that one. Altered Carbon. This one isn't the first season. This is the second season. So they actually had Anthony Mackie. He's Captain America now, right?
Right.
But
yeah,
he was
the former Falcon, and he was also in Adjustment Bureau and stuff.
So this is heady sci-fi kind of stuff a little bit. Very action, gore, a lot of sex in the first one. The second one is a little bit lighter on that, but there are people with essentially their soul and memories all in this chip in their neck, so they can essentially live forever as long as that chip is maintained, kind of a deal. So they get to do all these things where this one character is played by different people. So Anthony Mackie actually replaces the guy who was the lead actor in the first one. And I was kind of up and down about it in the first season until there was this scene with an older balding guy who played somebody's Hispanic grandmother, I think. It was he ended up playing 3 or 4 different characters because the chip kept getting switched, kind of a thing. And he was just so impressive, Gary Oldman level impressive.
Wow.
But in the second season, if you skip the first one, that's pretty much all the stuff you need. It'll give you a little recap. But there's less sex in the second one, so a little bit more safe recommendation there. But there is a AI that controls a hotel where the main character stays, and he's based on Edgar Allan Poe, one of my favorite characters in a TV show ever. So if
every time I think I've got a handle on what you're talking about, you throw me another.
You're okay with some maturity in there. That could be one. Animaniacs came back, kind of like DuckTales did their comeback. If you like the original, you should like the remake. They got the same 3 voice actors, 4. They got Brain as well in there. So Pinky and the Brain and Animaniacs. They don't have much of the rest of the cast. They don't have Katie Kaboom and Mr. Skullhead and some of those other recurring characters that kind of focus on just those 2 groups. But good new songs, good new meta commentary. There was one issue I had on my stereo television set where some of the songs, the singer actually got quieter. Like I was looking for a speaker that wasn't there. But other than that, I can give it a strong recommendation. And then we talked about or recommended The Great and Queen's Gambit last time. Again, The Great especially, lots of adult content in that one. And I don't know, the draw of it is similar in a way to Breaking Bad, where most of the characters aren't supposed to be redeemable, and you're not trying to emulate them too much. They're not like, oh, this is clearly the good guy, this is clearly the bad guy, and they always do everything right. It's like most everybody is doing things wrong. And you're just like watching the train wreck. But this one is so much funnier than Breaking Bad ever was.
Like, and Elle Fanning is a very plays a very likable character overall as Catherine the Great. Yeah,
she has good admirations. She has good goals, good ideals to shoot for, especially more of a modernist, something that's palatable to our culture.
Right.
And I think they definitely tend to skew the reality. They tell you at the beginning, occasionally true story.
Occasional true story, right, yeah.
And so it's if you're okay with watching horrible characters, it can really get you a laugh. Queen's Gambit, not so much. Not a humor, not a comedy based thing. But both have women in typically male-dominated areas rising up the ranks, gaining more power, that sort of thing. Well shot, well acted.
Right, for sure.
No violence, I don't think.
There's the battle scene, the sort of war. I don't know. There's like an episode or 2 where she goes to the front lines of a war, and that has a lot of gore, if I recall correctly. But it's not like, I don't think it's.
Well, she went to the front lines of a war in the Queen's Gambit.
Oh no, in The Great. I'm sorry.
No. The Great has plenty of violence. Yes, on the battleground and just ridiculous violence at home or at the palace kind of thing.
Right.
Queen's Gambit doesn't have the violence.
Right. Yes. Good point. All right. That's where we
reenact what's happening on the chessboard as an actual battle. Blood all over the chessboard.
Yeah. Corridor Crew did a YouTube series called Son of a Dungeon, where it's like half an actual play podcast and then half like you actually go into the fantasy world. That could be an interesting way to do like Queen's Gambit season 2.
Yes. That would be funny. But yeah, so take it or leave it. You should know based on the little bits I gave you there, whether those are shows. I also going back and seeing if you missed them.
I also do. I need to issue a correction from last time. We mentioned we mentioned The Good Place, and I was like, I think that ended in 2019. It did not. The very last episode of it was in 2020. So if you are in any way interested in The The Good Place. Definitely pick that one up. It is awesome. If you've not heard anything about it, don't read anything about it before you watch it. It is brilliant and beautiful, and there's a lot of stuff in it that if you get spoiled, it is you can't get that back. So definitely would recommend that one. I also there were 2 new Star Trek shows that premiered in 2020. The one I can definitely recommend to most people is Lower Decks, because it just has it's a comedy show, and it's in a cartoon format, but it's really well done, and it has quite a lot of heart to it too. So definitely recommend that one. So on as far as TV goes, that's where I would aim that. Well, I had fun talking about television, but you know what we don't talk about?
Bruno. Okay, but we're going to break our rule, and we probably will talk about Bruno. But
right, yes,
it's more about Maribel. But you know,
right.
Bruno's important to the story.
Yeah, well, and that's interesting that you say so. You did like Surface Pressure.
Yes.
You were not as up on the Family Madrigal. What did you think about Waiting on a Miracle? Or Waiting for a Miracle? I'm not sure which one.
Which one was that?
That's where Mirabelle sings about how she's not fine. It's right after they take the picture of the boy with his new powers, his new gift, and everything freezes, and she like walks around and sings about it, and then she goes out and sings about how she's waiting on a miracle. And
it was all right. It was okay. It didn't blow me away.
Okay.
But it wasn't distancing me either.
Sure.
Like if it had been, if I felt about the other songs as I did about the first one, I might have just given up on it.
Sure.
But each one seemed to kind of, okay, I can trust you a little bit more. I can trust, and I was surprised because it's Lin-Manuel Miranda,
right.
and I love his stuff. So I was like, why is that one not hitting very well? But yeah, I kept warming up, and what was the Aborreguitas or how?
Dos Oreguitas.
Dos Oreguitas, yeah. I was really in for Bruno and that one. Very, very good. Very well composed. All that kind of good stuff. Yeah,
that. I mean, so I also wonder how much of my experience with the song. So I really liked all the songs. I thought that they were all, obviously We Don't Talk About Bruno is having a moment, and it's particularly toe tapping. But I mean, Surface Pressure was, I don't know, I really felt that one for some reason. And then but all of them I felt like were really well done and high quality. And I heard recently that We Don't Talk About Bruno has just surpassed Let It Go as Disney's highest charting song ever. So that's interesting.
Especially since they didn't change the whole movie to fit that song.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I guess I don't know. Maybe they originally didn't have Bruno being, quite as big of a feature as they did in the final movie. But the point I'm trying to make is I thought the music was really good throughout. Yes. The thing I was really impressed about, and I've been impressed about it with a lot of Lin-Manuel Miranda's stuff, and maybe less so with Disney in general, is that a lot of times when Disney has a song, it doesn't progress the plot as much as it progresses the emotion of the characters. And what I felt like in this movie, and particularly with We Don't Talk About Bruno, is that one not only, like, she solves the whole problem or the whole mystery. I mean, I guess not really solves it, but like she really gets to a whole nother level when she sings that, or when they sing that song. And so a lot of what goes on in the songs throughout Encanto really feels like they do both. They don't just develop the character, they also develop the story, which I thought was really, really impressive. Like, thinking about Waiting on a Miracle ends with the cracks like starting to form, and Surface Pressure is where basically she starts to figure out about how sort of the family does have secrets about Bruno and that sort of thing. Because you hear her in the Family Madrigal, she's completely like sort of oblivious to the thing about Bruno. She just sort of says, "Oh yeah, he could tell the future, but he disappeared." And then in Surface Pressure, like she starts to discover that there are secrets, and then at the very end of that, she's sent up to his tower to like figure all that stuff out. But yeah, so I and then in What Else Can I Do? Like all of a sudden, Isabella breaks free from her, feeling of inadequacies and that sort of thing. So yeah, I felt like the songs in this one really did a lot more heavy lifting than maybe the songs of Disney past. and maybe that's Lin-Manuel Miranda. Maybe that's just, this is the way Disney is doing things now. But I just thought that was a really interesting way of progressing the plot that they don't usually do.
Yeah, it kind of has the Jackie Chan approach to stunts, right? Like he always wants the stunt to not just be punching and kicking. He's wanting it to progress the storyline and involve things around the characters. It's like, well, why? How would they react to this situation because they're in this world and they're dealing with these problems, kind of a thing. He's like, oh, that's why so many of them they're trying to not break things,
right?
in his stunts that he choreographs, because it's like, oh, this is important to this character. They're not just going to focus solely on, I have to punch you more times than you punch me. I also want to make sure this, it's usually a Chinese historical artifact of some sort, some vase or something. He's like, don't break that, or don't, anger the boss, kind of a thing.
Right.
So, yeah, it's definitely appreciated when people understand more than just the spectacle of what they're putting into the film, but actually what the film is doing and trying to accomplish through that. So I agree. I agree on that.
So we've talked about the music. I would like to go back and talk about the narrative a little bit, because they're not separate by any means, but I feel like if you deal with it all as one thing, you can get lost in the weeds. What did you think, like the sort of the core thought of this film was? What were you sort of coming up to on that one?
Well, I mean, it's hardly, I say this in a facetious way, it's almost not a Disney movie.
Okay.
She has both parents. They're both alive.
That's a good point.
There's no villain
in
the film.
Yeah.
Like there's no big bad. They kind of allude that Bruno might be one, but then they diffuse that as soon as you come face to face with him. So it really is solely about family and your interpersonal relationships within that, and then how that affects the community around you. It's very upfront about it. It's almost hard to miss. But that seems to be the driving force, is just different problems you can have with different family members based on your perception of them, based on community's perception of them, and just miscommunication through secrets, through misinterpretations, things of that nature.
Right. And I agree, and that's sort of what I had down as well. But I think I went a little bit deeper, and like it was sort of stated right there at the beginning, you will make your family proud. And Mirabelle says that both before and after the title, where she's like, or rather I think Atwell says it before, and then she says it after, that like, I will make my family proud. There's an immense amount of pressure being put upon all of these people. And, it's put to song by both Luisa and Isabella, the different sort of pressures that they are under. Bruno has enough pressure put on him that he leaves, or kind of leaves. The whole Madrigal family is sort of built upon this pressure that they put upon each other. And I don't think that's, you mentioned that there are no villains, and except for the soldiers at the very beginning, there are no villains in this film. And the real villain here, I think, is just the amount of pressure that we put on ourselves, or our family puts on us, to do a thing or act a certain way or be what you feel like you need to be, that sort of thing. And so I would really, I felt like it was of a particular time. Right now in 2022, the the normalization of therapy and of realizing the wounds that you have endured through childhood and through your young adult life. It's starting to become much less taboo. We're starting to talk about these things a whole lot more. And I felt like in that vein, Encanto is of a time, it's of this time. But I think also it's something that people have struggled with from time out of mind, and maybe not so much in white culture or in Christian culture, but also for some people, like even more so in that culture, because not only do they have the pressure of their family, they also have the pressure of their church. And so I think that this also has this broader, wider reaching connection to sort of people throughout time. So it's both of a time and more focus, or more broadly applicable to people throughout time. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see how this film ages in that respect.
Yeah. I do think it is a universal issue, a universal problem people have. And even in a blessed or an area or a time period of blessing, right? Because they live in a house that takes care of them.
Right.
They reach a certain age and they're given their grand purpose to the nth degree, to where they can fulfill it easier than anybody else who would have any kind of,
and they know what it is because it's on their door.
Yeah, exactly.
They don't have to go find
you're
it.
The strong one. You're the pretty one. You're the animal kid. Whatever he's supposed to do with that. Which I think he's not pulling his weight for his sister, because she was carrying all those donkeys and he could have just told them to go to where they But it's like, I definitely see how that, it's like plastered on your face, plastered on the door. This is you. This is what you do. Right. And if you're not doing it, then you're being selfish or some other mode of guilt, right?
Right.
And that can definitely happen in a church setting, because so many people are hyper-focused on what? Gifts. Right. Yeah. What is my spiritual gifting? What is my spiritual calling? How am I serving the church? And if I'm not doing enough because I might be more naturally gifted at it, does that mean I'm doing something wrong?
Yeah.
And how much stress that can put on people, to the point where they might follow a Bruno kind of a thing. They'll just be like, well, I can't deal with it. Anytime I go to church, I'm just stressing out. I'm going to go home and I'm not going to go back again, kind of a thing.
So you're saying Bruno was deconstructing?
To a point, I think that'd be fair.
I mean, I'm not saying that as a gotcha. I think that's absolutely an accurate read on it.
And he also is, he brought to mind all the prophets in the Old Testament.
Right.
It's like they all had a Bruno situation where it's like, oh yeah, what I have to tell you, what the future is going to be, it's this. And,
right.
Sometimes goldfish die, okay? Right. It's not that I want this to happen. I'm not causing it to happen. It's just, I'm the operator on the telephone line here. This is the wires, how they cross, and you might not like it.
Right.
But yeah, definitely, because he doesn't leave entirely, right? He's like, he knows he wants to be part of the family. He knows he wants to help the family, but they don't want him.
Right.
And, he feels like he's making them look bad because that's what they're, signaling to him. So like, well, if you don't want me, I won't get in your face. I won't get in your way. But he just, he's in the backdrop. He's in the background there, just keeping an eye on him. Well, that sort of a thing.
You mentioned how they sort of live almost in perfection, right? You were talking about how their house gives them everything they want. They don't need anything. They know perfectly what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to do it. And I think that really highlights how even like, this is just the way that we are. This is not the pressures of the world on us that's making us this way. And the movie really highlights that, because it gives us until after the jaunty song at the beginning about the family madrigal, before pulling the rug out from under us about Mirabel not having a gift. But so we get to experience that sort of pre-fall perfection briefly, where she's just talking about how great her family is and how they all fire on all cylinders and they all work together so well. And then all of a sudden you find out, oh, she's maybe the fault in that. But even before that, I feel like there's already the sort of undercurrent of pressure. You know, we've already talked about make your family proud and all of the pressure that there is with that. But you also there's a line that Abuela sings in the middle of that song that I thought was interesting. She says that she's talking about the candle. She says that work and dedication will keep the miracle burning. And she talks about how they have this responsibility to this community in their Encanto. And that is a lot of weight to put on, 7 people or 10 people, however many are actually in that family. That's a lot of weight to put on that family. Work and dedication, and we're going to keep this community alive all by ourselves.
Harkens back to the Spider-Man, right?
Yeah,
to
right.
Uncle Ben. It's like, you've been given this gift. That means you've got more responsibility than the rest of us.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And as I want to be careful to say this in a way that doesn't make it sound like I don't believe that and I don't agree with that. But I think that I feel like I'm jumping to the end of my conclusions here. I don't want to say that I don't agree with that or I don't believe that, because I think that our responsibility as humans, but in particular as Christians, is to our community and to the people around us. Our responsibility is we've got this gift to give it to others in whatever way that works out for us. But I also think that there's a lot of pressure that comes with that we then have all of this pressure upon us that now, it's all on me. There is no grace at all. If I fail, everything falls. Pressure, tip, tip, tip. And like all of that just weight upon our shoulders. It feels like there's an opportunity for a break, in ourselves. And a lot of people are experiencing that, particularly right now, as the pandemic enters its 3rd year, that this is feeling like it's feeling like an unbearable weight. Luisa says, give it to your sister and never wonder if the same weight would have pulled you under. We're getting to the point where people are wondering or are being pulled under by this weight of all of this stuff going on. And so I think that there's a significant message here about being gentle with yourself and being kind to yourself, and about trusting in the fact that God has all of the power and the world will not fall apart if you are not perfect. So I think that coming from the perfection of their creation and realizing that like this weight is not just because of how difficult our world is, it's definitely made worse by how difficult our world is, and how they needed the comfort and the relief of, you don't have to hold all of this on your shoulders. You're carrying too much weight. I think we need to hear that as well.
Yeah. And along with that, also giving yourself freedom within those responsibilities and gifts.
Yeah.
Right. Because not Louisa, the other sister, the perfect one. Isabella. She was using her gift the way that it was supposed to be used, and she had to be perfect her whole life.
Right.
And then she's like, I could make things that people don't immediately look to as what they consider beautiful, but I think there's some beauty within them.
Right.
I think there's some, qualities that are worth admiring and things like that. It's like sometimes you're just putting yourself in too small of a box. It's like, and that's where, even if you're dealing with the same burden, if you can wiggle underneath of it sometime, shift your weight kind of a thing, it's like, okay, I can rely on this part of it a little bit for a while, and then I can switch to this, and that can help me balance out the pressure I'm feeling and deal with the stresses that come along with it. So that was nice that they gave kind of a insight into how to deal with that pressure a little bit with that. But the bigger issue is the support that you have or don't have. Right. because it's a lot easier to do that when people tell you it's okay.
Right.
Kind of like you guys were telling Mikey. It's like, it's okay. It won't fall apart. You don't have to take
right.
the whole thing on your shoulders. It doesn't have to live or die.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't have those people, if you have people reinforcing, no, you have to stay right where you are. You have to keep doing it exactly the same way. And if you don't, bad things are going to happen, not just to you, but everybody else is going to suffer on top of that. You've just added more weight on top of what they were already dealing with.
Right, for sure.
So definitely liked that message in there.
Well, and Louisa's song, she sings, "Who am I if I don't have what it takes?" See if she can handle every family burden. And that was probably something that was communicated to her, maybe not intentionally from the family, but it's also something that she took upon for herself. People were saying, "Hey, Louisa, this thing needs to be done," and she was saying, "Got it. Like I'm on it. Like this is what I'm supposed to do." And she said, "Who am I if I don't have who am I if I can't do everything?" She was putting her identity on that, and I think that the answer to her question that was not answered in the song, "Who am I if I don't have what it takes?" You're still a member of this family. You're still Luisa Madrigal. You're still beloved by your sister and your mother and your father and your grandmother. You are still a part of who the. And so when she breaks down, when she starts to lose her powers, that's her not realizing that she still has value, right? Even if she doesn't have what it takes, even if she can't hold up everything on her shoulders. Which, by the way, I read somewhere, and I don't know if it's true, that the producers at Disney wanted the animators to redesign Louisa to make her a little bit less gigantic, a little bit more womanly, I guess is what they had said. But so the animators responded instead by giving her the biggest biceps in Disney history. Which I think is just a really
Take that,
impressive.
Gaston.
Right. Yeah. Bigger than Gaston, bigger than Hercules. Yep.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. And I do think that's a common issue of the day as well, is identity crisis.
Yeah.
People saying, well, if this thing isn't true, then who am I now?
Right.
And again, I think it's the same solution spiritually. It's like, am I a man or am I a woman? It's like, well, your sex isn't what defines you eternally.
Right.
We have no Greek, no Jew, no Gentile, no male, no female. It's like all those things can change. You change address, you change, whatever you can change. And it's not a solid foundation at the end of the day. And that's why I think so many people are having mental health issues surrounding identity, because it's, I am a child of God and loved by Him, and that won't change. And that's the only thing you can use to get through that. And I think a lot of times there are taboos within the church. There are certain things that historically the church has distanced itself from more than others. We can tolerate gluttony, we can tolerate this, we can tolerate that a little bit more. Once you get into the sex stuff, we don't even want to touch that. We don't want to talk about it. It's all wrong. Just get it together and then come back to us. It's like, those are the people who probably need to hear what we have. We need to actually take our responsibility. We need to do some lifting there and say, look, if you can't deal with that, it's okay. That's not your identity in the first place.
Right.
You have a better identity. You have something you can, put in the bank. There's something you can rely on, rest on, find yourself, and say, hey, this is who I am. Doesn't matter what day it is. Doesn't matter what I'm going through. At the end of the day, this is who I am.
And being in a community that reinforces that too, or being that community that reinforces that, where you can say, this is who you are, right? So there's realizing yourself, this is who I am, but being a part of a community where you are saying to someone else, this is who you are. But before God, yes, and within our community, you are still one of us. I think is really important, and I think maybe a helpful thing to do right now as people are struggling with what if I drop these particular spinning plates, or whatever.
And donkeys. To make sure I don't miss any hot button issues, also political identity.
Yeah.
There are people on either side of political identity. If this side wins this, or if that side gets control of that, then the house is going to fall apart, right? The church is going to, just crumble into nothing, and then we'll have nothing left anymore, and it's going to be all your fault. And it's like, there's something else about it. There's something holding it together that's bigger than those identities. And if, again, we can focus on that, I think, and
not that those things don't matter, and not that we don't, not that those things don't matter, and not that we still don't have the responsibility to be faithful with the way that we interact with them. But yes, like you're saying, they are not our identity.
And that's really how Maribel goes through the family. She has a song with Louisa. She has a song with
Isabella.
And it's like she keeps meeting each person where they are, hearing their story, reaffirming them to some degree, as she's still trying to go through and take care of her own issues at the same time. But it's just, you can't just ignore what they're going through and say, it doesn't matter, you're fine, bye. It's like you have to let them express to you what they're dealing with, so they know they're understood, and then you can work together to get past it.
Well, and yes, and I love the fact that she doesn't do that very well. You think about, like, at the beginning of What Else Can I Do, Isabella says, her really jaw-dropping, like, I never wanted to marry him anyway, the cactus grows, and she's like, wow, that was a great revelation. Why don't you go ahead and give me a hug? Like, she just wants to just jump to the end, and her first 3 lines are just bring it in over and over again, and just I love the fact that she doesn't do it well. That is, and she doesn't do it well, and it still works because the whole point of it is being heard, not the words that you say. So I mean, probably don't try to jump to the end, but the fact that the whole thing happens, Mirabel fails at it a little bit, but still is able to help and come around eventually to help Isabella sort of free herself from the perfection and the expectations that are laid upon her. So I really liked that. I really thought that was great. Yeah.
And I have a theory. I'll bounce off you and see what you think about it.
All right.
I don't think Maribel is actually powerless or without a power.
I have a theory on this too. So.
Okay. Do you want to go first, or do you want
to go ahead? Go ahead.
Okay. My theory is her power is actually tied to the house.
Okay.
The other people, they have the house react to them, but she's about the only one who talks directly to it. And when she's getting up in the morning, it's throwing her slippers on for her and things like that. We don't see the house opening up drawers when the other aunt is putting the clothes in and things like that. It's not so in tune with everybody else. Most of the time, it's Maribel talking to the house. I need a ladder. I need this. I need that. And it's reacting to her. I feel like it's reinforced by that last scene where they give her the doorknob, she puts it on the house, and the house comes alive. So her door wasn't inside the house, it was the front door the whole time. They were just looking in the wrong spot for her gift.
Interesting.
That's my theory.
I really like that.
What was your theory?
I think that's interesting. And I think it is well supported. So my theory is actually something that my wife and I have been workshopping back and forth quite a bit, because she saw the movie on Disney Plus, loved it, went and saw it the next day in theaters, and then watched it again 2 days later with our daughter again. So she's seen it multiple times, and then she watched it with me last night to sort of prepare for this as well. And her theory is that Mirabelle's gift is related to sewing. It's repairing people. It's sewing people like you would darn a sock. It's repairing people because she has, we see how with I forget his name, Camilo, the little boy who just got his gift. We see that he likes animals before he gets his gift, and then his gift is animal related. Well, with her, we know that she likes sewing and textiles and repairing things because she's got the embroidery all over her blouse, and then she's got, she makes the doll for her cousin, and then she's got a sewing machine in her room. So this is sort of part of who she is to begin with. But then you see her, like you were talking about, she goes to Isabella and to Luisa, and she helps to repair them. She helps show them where they're broken, repair them, sort of sew them back together, and then at the very end helps to sew the whole family back together. And so I think that that's part of her gift as well. In Waiting on a Miracle, she sings through it, and she sings how I would move the mountains, and she does, because she cracks them open, right? I would make new trees and flowers grow, and she does with Isabella, right? And she says that she would show this family something new, a new casita. But then she says, I would heal what's broken, which could potentially be a thing where, she's referencing her mom. But I think it's more like that is actually what her gift is. That in that sort of run of stanzas, that's the only thing that she mentions that she doesn't actually explicitly do. And so I think that's her gift, is that she is healing what's broken. She is mending and she is fixing. That's her gift. And that fits in really well with yours, because at the end, she actually repairs the house. And she's able to sort of bring it back to its full glory at the very end. So I think that has a lot of weight to it. That she is able to sew things back together.
Very nice. Well, vote in the comments who's right, and bonus points if it's for me.
Right. No. Bonus negative points if it's for me, I guess. I don't know. We'll see.
Oh, no.
If you're feeling weird.
But that is interesting, because was the joining, the mountains coming together, the broken state of them? Because they break apart for them to be able to get back. Or would you say that's more of, if we're going to force an allegory, is it like opening up a wound to take the infection out, kind of a thing? Let it heal that way?
So a lot of times, if you're think about if you've got something that's ripping, if you put a cut in it right at the rip, if you cut it right there, it'll stop ripping along that line, right? And then you can sew it back up. And so I think that's part of that. It's wounding to repair, right? And so I think I don't know that necessarily is. You're right. It is a tortured metaphor, but I think that fits in as well. That this is about wounding to fix, wounding to heal. So, what is the miracle for, and who is the miracle for?
What is it for, and who is it for?
Yeah.
Well, and that answer will change based on who you ask in the story. Right?
Oh, I like that. Okay, talk about that.
So, if we're talking about the individual family members awaiting their door, it's for them.
Right.
You ask the grandma, or you ask those same people after they've been given their door, it's for the family, but more so for the community. Right? Because if you're not doing it for the community, then you're not making your family proud, and you're making a bad face for the family.
Right.
If you are asking the grandfather, I would say it was for the grandmother. Because he couldn't be there for her like he would have wanted to be.
Yeah.
If you ask the community, I would say they'd say it was for the family, and they're just happy that the family is willing to share it with them based on the community's response when they were in need.
You're right, because they're like, we have no gifts, but we are many. They're talking about how you're a part of us, even if you don't have. Yeah, that's right. I like that.
Yeah. So that would be the who, I guess, and kind of tied into it is the what, or what is it for? What were you thinking?
I think I generally agree. I hadn't thought about splitting it out by various people like that, but I think the overall maybe best answer is that it is for everyone. I mean, that's the for everyone around you, I guess, is the answer. And I probably draw this very extensively from, the way that Israelites were supposed to interact with the people around them and the way that Christians are supposed to interact with people around them. So I think that definitely colors the way that I'm going to answer this question. But being hyper focused upon one particular person, or one, if it's you or if it's somebody else, that you're trying to help, or even just like one particular, group of people, can a lot of times blind you to the things that you are supposed to be helping others with. And so I think that that saying that the miracle is for just the Madrigal family, or it's just for the community, because you're right that the answer is going to be different depending on who you ask. I think we'll really miss out on the reality, though I do think that the community probably has the healthiest answer to that, or the healthiest reaction to that. That like it's for you guys, we're just happy to be here. I think that's, and we'd love to help, wow. You've opened my eyes and completely made my my existing answer sort of inadequate, it feels like. So who am I if I don't have what it takes here? I love that though.
Well, I was not trying to outdo any answers. That's
No, I loved it, and I think the beautiful part of it for me is that it really does so much more focus on the way that I consider, the gifts that I have, or the way that I consider the way that I interact with other people, as sort of for one person, or for me, or for whatever group. When the answer is that it's for everybody around me. It's for me, and it's for my family, and it's for my community, and it's for my church, and it's for everybody. It's not just
Be careful, you're sounding a little communist.
I mean, I would hope I'm sounding Christian.
But those two can't be the same.
Right.
I'm sorry, I'm trolling.
No, I love it. But I also think that it's interesting how that this goes along with the expectations, right? That like if the gift is for me, then the expectation is that I will be perfect. If the gift is for the community, then the expectation is that I can't use the gift on myself. If the gift is for the family, then the expectation is I can't let the family down, or I'm, in some way invalidating the gift. Which I think is part of why the fact that Mirabel doesn't appear to have a gift, if Mirabel doesn't appear to have a gift, she is free from those expectations. And so she is maybe free to be able to free others. And in a way that maybe she couldn't do if she had the expectation that she would. So
interesting, because you'd think so Mirabel has some distance, right? She doesn't have the expectations placed on her, but you could say Bruno's kind of in that position right now as well, right? Because people don't even know he's there.
That's true.
But it doesn't seem like he's using that to the advantage of the family. He's using it more to advantage for himself, just making sure he's close to the kitchen to grab food when he needs to, and make sure he has enough props and dresses to do his theater.
Yeah.
in the back of the wall there. But yeah, so with or without the gifts, you can definitely do it right or wrong, both, depending on where your focus is. And again, it's probably unfair to say he doesn't have those expectations. I think he's still feeling those, which is why he's in that situation. But you'd think if he wanted to, he could have leveraged that differently to kind of be a little string puller in the background to make things better for everybody if he could.
He does, though, because he repairs the cracks in the wall.
No, he doesn't. Hector does.
Well, that's true, but fair enough.
I don't remember if it was Hector. It was
that sounded right to me.
That's good. So.
What do you think about?
But yeah,
what do you think about stars don't shine, they burn?
I think there are a lot of celebrities that would agree with that.
Okay.
There are a lot who are bit by that. But what do we think they're referring to as stars at this point?
Mm-hmm.
What makes a star?
Well, she specifically
in this context.
She specifically calls out the family as a constellation of stars.
So gifted people, possibly. I don't know. It doesn't sound like it has good connotations to the statement.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think it's meant to make the stars feel better that they're not shining, they're burning, kind of a deal. But I mean, it's kind of that double-edged sword. It's that finding the right balance kind of a thing again, because when you exercise, it hurts. You have to burn energy, you have to burn calories, you have to put in effort, right?
Yeah.
And in that sense, it might be good as a star to burn.
Right.
But you don't want to burn out.
Right. Yeah.
Right? Because then at that point, you've lost the ability to burn or shine, either way. However you want to qualify it. And the same with exercise. You exercise too much, you hurt yourself, maybe you can't do that exercise in the future anymore. You can't lift, you can't help people with those muscles you were trying to develop to help them in the first place, or you aren't able to, keep up your energy levels like you were hoping to, because now you're relegated to a chair more often than you used to be. Right. So, I don't know. It has a warning type feel to the statement. But again, just because it's a warning doesn't mean the whole thing. Right. Just because you have to have a measured hand with it doesn't mean you don't put any of it in.
Right. And that's part of the subtlety of this movie that I really like, is that it's not saying this is bad. It's saying, be gentle with yourself. Yeah. So that's pretty much exactly what I was thinking too. Like with the addition that you don't shine. Shining is something that happens to you. You reflect something else, right? That's what shining is. Burning requires something of you. Like something of you is diminished or lost in some way when you burn. Now it may be replenished, but it is lost for a time. So it's not for free. Burning is not for free. Shining would be for free, but we don't just shine. Burning costs us. So don't stop, but be gentle with yourself. Like we were talking about last time with Mikey, like make sure that rest is a part of the process, not just a thing you do after the process is over. And be careful not to burn out, like you said, or like an overachieving, gifted and talented kid in their 30s. Like that's the way that a lot of millennials are feeling right now. So if you're a millennial out there, be gentle with yourself,
Yes.
and all of this, you don't shine. Burning requires something of you. It's a lot like a candle. So realizing that like you are the miracle for your community, or you are a miracle for your community, and realizing that burning yourself out is not going to help anybody. So I loved the unimpressed capybara.
Yes. the animals all around were pretty good.
Yeah.
The snake he just uses as a swing, and the capybara just, whatever humans, you do your thing. I'm over here just fine.
Yep.
But I did like the scene definitely in there where you get to, I just immediately, not even thinking about doing a podcast or anything, I was just like, I can kind of use that to color my view of, the mansions waiting for us, and we have a purpose, we have, this city to run, or this, group to help, or whatever. It's just like, he gives us a name, and it's like, that's what I was supposed to be doing.
Right.
This is what I was gifted at the whole time. This is where I was supposed to be burning towards. This is where I was supposed to be, what I was best equipped to do, and what I'll be working on. And it's just like, not only will it be great, again, for yourself to have that, but it's like, how fun would it be just to go around to everybody's room and see what their gift is and how they're able to use it. And it's just so much more than harps on clouds.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I'm like, God lists a lot more instruments than just harps in the Bible anyway.
Right. Yeah.
But it was just kind of like, that really cheered me up, just seeing that little kid riding around on the tigers and things.
I hadn't even thought about it as an allusion to heaven, but you're absolutely right. That's that has that feel to it. I love it. I hadn't even thought about that. You're right. Very cool.
Well, I've earned my keep on the podcast
multiple times, for sure. So I guess we'll keep you around until next time, at least. All
right, sounds good. So that was our discussion on Encanto. Hopefully that was helpful to you in some way, whether in engaging the movie, talking about it with other people who have watched it, or just for your own personal life, looking at different things that might help you engage other movies, other topics, things like that. We are willing to branch out right now, so if you guys are interested in books you've read, video games you've played or heard about, or other forms of media that you're interested in discussing or hearing us discuss, please let us know in the comments, on the Discord, on Facebook, all those places you can comment. We're going to keep an eye on those. So if there is something in particular, we will do our due diligence to try and address that either on a future podcast, or maybe somebody will write an article on that. But we'd love to interact with you. We'd love to have a conversation with you in one degree or another.
And if you'd like to write that article, reach out to me, David at redeemingculture.com. You can find that email in the show notes for this episode. Also, of course, join our Discord server or our Facebook discussion group. Those links are in the show notes as well. If you'd like to support us, go to reelworldtheology.com/support. And we would love to have you on board in one manner or another as a part of our Reel World Theology Encanto. No, family. There we go. That's the one.
Either way. You want to pronounce it.
Well, in defiance of all the rules we have talked about, Bruno. So thank you for listening. And until next time, remember, story is powerful and entertainment is not mindless.
Very nice.
You know where they don't have TV?
Where?
In Colombia in the 1960s, where Encanto is set.
In the 1960s, you don't think they had any?
They didn't have TV like this.
Well, definitely not like this.
I'm reaching for a really bad segue here. You got something better?
Nope.
There we go.
Exactly. There you go.
Let's go back. We'll redo it.
You just have to riff a little bit. You just have to work it around.
Yeah.
Eventually you get there.
Yep.